There were places in the world where the future felt fragile, where a donkey's bray at dawn meant the difference between survival and despair, and where a story carried on dust and wind demanded to be told. Welcome back to my journalism toolkit. I'm Jamal Osman. Some stories stay with you the way Turkana's desert dust settled on everything it touched. Today I'm revisiting one of those stories, a story from 2021 when I reported on a nomadic community in northwest Kenya, Turkana, fighting to protect their donkeys from slaughter and trafficking. Turkana had always been a frontier bordering Uganda, South Sudan and Ethiopia, a place shaped by centuries of migration, drought and conflict. People there didn't measure distances in miles or kilometers, but in footsteps and the worn paths laid down over generations. The donkey wasn't just an animal, it was transport, ambulance, companion. It carried water, children, firewood, grain, and often it carried entire futures. And yet this humble creature had become a target. Global demand, especially from parts of China, for donkey skin used to produce ejao, a traditional medicine, and the rising popularity of donkey meat had created a brutal pipeline stretching from Kenya's poorest households to clandestine markets thousands of kilometers away. Donkeys began disappearing in the night. Communities woke up to footprints. The grief was palpable, the anger even more so. When this story reached me, what struck me first was the scale of loss. 15% of Kenya's donkeys had vanished within 2 years. 4 slaughterhouses had opened, and with them came organized theft, violence and fear. But it wasn't enough to know the numbers. Numbers do not mourn. Numbers do not sing. So I worked closely with a local journalist, someone rooted in the rhythms of Turkana life. He spent days walking through villages, listening, filming, letting the community lead the way. I remember going through footage of Turkana women singing, voices rising like smoke into the morning air. Songs about their great donkeys, the ones that carried them to the field when trouble came. Even though a screen, it felt sacred. My approach as always was simple, dignity first, to let people speak in their own way, to let landscapes breathe, to show the world what poverty looks like when global markets collide with fragile lives. There was Ekido, self-spoken. She talked about her stolen donkeys. There was Joseph, explaining how he traveled with his donkeys when pasture ran thin and how he carried the sick to distant hospitals. And then there was Appetite. She explained that since her donkeys were stolen and later, after her husband passed, she had no one, nothing, and no way to survive. Her grief was theatrical. It was quiet, stripped down to its bones. Chief Nathan spoke with the weight that only leaders of wounded communities carry. He estimated that more than 15,000 donkeys had been stolen in his area alone.
20,000 number of donkeys. This number is reducing due to the theft. I'm expecting the number to be more than 15,000 donkeys that have been stolen in this area.
His face held both fatigue and a stubborn, unbroken resolve. These weren't just testimonies. They were small acts of defiance, refusal to be erased. This was never only a local story, it was global economics playing out on the dust roads of Turkana. Chinese demand for donkey skins was soaring. A jar was selling for hundreds of pounds per kilo. slaughterhouses had sprung up across East Africa like a rush. And while animal rights groups had fought hard, successfully for a time, to shut them down, the industry took advantage of loopholes. Stockpiles were cleared, cases climbed through Kenya's courts, illegal transportation continued in the shadows. Officials denied wrongdoing.
If there is still a continuation of illegal transportation of donkey's meat from Turkana County, why has it not been intercepted?
Communities knew better, and as always, when poverty and profit collide, the poorest bodies break first. One of the most memorable scenes in the footage was of villagers meeting. No banners, no government presence, just people gathering the way they always had, on dust, in shade, in silence, and building their own line of defense. Joseph was chosen to lead a vigilante group. He spoke with bravery. It wasn't heroism in the Hollywood sense. It was survival, old world courage in a new world crisis. The story showed that global trade isn't abstract. It has fingerprints, traits, and human costs. It reminded me that some of the world's most important stories are told far from capital cities, in places where the land cracks, where water runs thin, and where people rely on the soft, steady strength of a donkey to carry them through the day. Above all, it reinforced something I've always believed, that every community, no matter how remote, deserves to be heard on its own terms. The world has moved on in many ways since 2021, but the forces that shaped this story haven't disappeared. Global supply chains, demand for exotic products, the vulnerability of nomadic people, and the ease with which the powerful exploit the poor. Donkey slaughterhouses are now established in other African countries. The gangs found new places, new targets. As climate pressure intensifies, communities like Turkanas, already living on the edge, will face even harsher tests. Donkeys will remain their lifeline, and the threat of trafficking might rise again. With every economic downturn, so telling this story today isn't nostalgia. It's a warning and perhaps a call to protect the quiet beasts that carry humanity's burdens without complaint. I still hear the women singing, a melody carried across the desert, stitched from gratitude and sorrow, from resilience, older than any market demand. When they were troublous, they sang, it was the great donkey that carried us out to the field. In their voices, in their losses, in their unbroken will, I found a story worth returning to. One that asks us to look again at the hidden costs of our world. Thanks for watching. See you next time.